was beautiful, really beautiful. A dream come true, to walk into that spaciousness, to have the opportunity to deliver a message. I've never done this before. Usually it's my husband that does this. Thank you. Seriously. No, we're not going to get serious. Am I dabbing correctly? It is. It's a dream come true to have a life dedicated to this, a life dedicated to being in the spiritual community where we get to choose that this is the life that moving forward we live. And the axioms or the rules or the gifts of the spiritual truths that we begin to declare and dedicate our lives to. And that when we're in spiritual community, that we get to remind each other of this when it's challenging, when life happens in a way that touches the fear that has made a home in our consciousness, sometimes much to our surprise, sometimes things that we thought that we already dealt with, sometimes things that we know are coming, in some way, a fear that we've fostered, and the song talks about that there comes a time when our fear must face the God that we know, and that's really what we do week in, week out, day in, day out, is that we become willing to feel the fear, feel the trepidation, feel that which is so uncomfortable in this human experience, identified as fear, as separation, of having its foundation in a thought system of separation that has been cultivated in this human experience so deeply that we have mistaken it for the way it works. And we come to this community and we begin to say, no, I reject this thought system. I say, get thee behind me. That separation from God, separation from my brother and sister, which leads to fear, which leads to attack, which leads to otherness, which leads to guilt, which leads to isolation, which is the genesis of depression and every single illness that we experience as humans, has only ever one cause. That's why our work in some ways is simple. I'm not saying easy, but simple. It all goes back to which thought system am I buying into? Which thought system am I dedicating my life to? And what we've decided to do here is to dedicate our life to a thought system and a way of life that actually truly works, that says unity, that says God and I are one, that says that in our fearlessness, which isn't saying we don't experience the fear, but in our fearlessness, we are free. We become unlimited because we become unshackled, because we take that fearfulness and we take it to the altar. We show its face to God, and it dissipates and it disappears because we were never meant to do it alone. We were never meant to be alone. In fact, it is impossible for us to be alone. And so what we're doing during this conversation over this summer theme is that we're cultivating a relationship with the comforter of our being, the beloved of our being. And that as we do that, that's where we take the fear and the fearfulness. And we know that we're not alone. And that we know that of our own self, we were never meant to handle these things. I know this thought system said, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Take that bull by the horns. I think probably both are important. But either way, you don't have a chance, right? I mean, Either way, it's a dangerous proposition. But we keep doing it. No. We can surrender. We can let that go. And as we do so, we discover that there is another way, and that surrender is sweet. That in this thought system, surrender means I failed. Surrender means I'm defeated. But the only thing that is defeated and surrendered is that which does not work. We're only surrendering that which doesn't serve us. We're only surrendering the sense of separation, which leads to the guilt, which leads to attack, which leads to all of the crazy stuff we do, right? All the crazy emails we send, all the crazy little bickering that we do. All of those things are just coming from a thought system that we were indoctrinated into. But here's the truth of our being, is that in this journey thus far, or up until now, we just haven't gone back far enough. That's all. We just haven't gone back far enough to the beginning, and the beginning is changeless. The beginning is that we are, you are, I am. Allow it to be the I am, the singular, the unity, consciousness. I am as God created me to be. That doesn't change up on you. That doesn't change up on us. You can't add anything to it, so all of our trying to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps to make ourselves look good, or to bolster our resume, or to make sure I don't, dab off my makeup when I'm crying, so I can look good, right? All of those things we can let go of. All of those things. Because those things come from the changing, the ever-changing, which is on the surface level, but we have to go deeper. We have to go deeper to our origins, to our aboriginal nature, to the nature that preceded this experience, this human experience, this nature that will continue on when we let go of this human experience, this thing that we call death, that is actually birth into just another experience. That's what we surrender into, the changeless. And so we go back far enough. Your creation, our creation by God, is the only foundation which cannot be shaken. It's the only foundation that cannot be shaken, because the light is in it. This is our starting point in truth. And we must return to this beginning. If we are suffering, if we are experiencing fear, it's because we haven't gone back far enough to that beginning, to the beginning of who we are. When we do that attunement during our prayers, the who I am as God created me. That's what you're attuning to. It's a vibratory field. When we speak it, when we utter it, it's happening. Something's shifting. You might be saying, like, oh, I don't know who I am. Like, why does she keep saying that? Why does she make me say it? And it's like, that's that little mind that's going to keep you distracted. And we've cultivated the art of listening to that distraction. Now we're cultivating the art of saying, no, I'm going to focus over here. I'm going to lean in and listen. I know who I am. I know what I am. I know how I serve. I know who I am as God created me, that I am changeless, that I am spirit, that I am unlimited, I am free. And the reading said that in that state of consciousness, I take 100% responsibility for all of creation. Yeah. That would have me running out the door. But it's their fault. It's your fault. No. I take responsibility. And how is it that I can do that? Because this is the key to freedom, my friends. So this is why we keep going back to this. This is the key to freedom. To take 100% responsibility, to be responsible. I want to quote it. I want to quote it. Dennis, man, you did a great job. It said, because you suddenly realize that you are not that your greatest joy, your greatest fulfillment is in wholly and deliberately accepting, I accept responsibility for the whole of creation. Who, me? Right? Right? But why? Because you realize that you are not the maker and the doer, that you can accept responsibility for anything and everything, because through you all power under heaven and earth is made to flow through you, to manifest the love of God. Now, mind you, it didn't say you've got to make it flow. It didn't say that you had to make it happen. You see, the reason why this is so important is because what we talked about last week, we're allowing. We're allowing. That surrender is sweet because it falls upon the heels of our allowance practice, where we're accepting everything just as it is and just as it isn't. And those things that bubble up as an irritation, we're forgiving our judgment of. We're getting that Windex of forgiveness out, and we're going to clean the windows of the spiritual mind. You got to listen to last week to get that one. We're using our forgiveness practice, not forgiving others, but forgiving ourselves for the judgments that we hold, judging everything as good or bad, and that we just maintain this spaciousness through our allowance practice so that we can surrender in. And this is how we may be the channel for God, for the love of God. Not to make something happen, but to be the allower, to be. That the beingness precedes our doingness. We had it backwards. And that as we allow ourselves to be, as we sweetly surrender into the divine identity, we begin to realize that of my own self I need do nothing. We begin to realize the mystical transformation that will occur, that does occur. I live, yet not I, but the Christ, the awakened consciousness, the beloved of God dwelleth within me. I live, yet not I, but the Christ dwelleth in me. That because I have practiced these keys to the kingdom, that I have cultivated a desire that desires God first, love first, and I've set my intention according to that, and I've watched and allowed everything to pop up, and I've forgiven it. All the irritants, all the things that make fear arise in my consciousness. And I surrender into thine hands, I commend my spirit. The song that we sing, use me, God. I don't have to make things happen. I'm allowing it to happen through me. And what surrender is, what it means, is that there's no one here living a life. There is life, capital L life, flowing through the body, mind, personality for as long as it lasts. I'm nodding. Nod with me. It means there's an agreement. Even if you might not, just try it. It signifies a willingness. I live, yet not I, but the Christ liveth through me, as me. That life, capital L life, is flowing through me. If I surrender, I'm afraid. If I fully surrender, I'm pretty much afraid that I won't have anything to do. And then who will I be? But in our surrendering, it is a stage in which perfect peace is the foundation, not for passivity or inactivity, but for more activity. I know that's what has happened in my life. A 1.5 years ago, I was done with this kind of gig. And I remember telling my sister that. I remember telling her. And in her wisdom, she said, "But I thought you were called." Does that mean your calling ended? And I said, "I'll talk to you later." I'll talk to you later, even though I'm Rev Claudia, I'm still little sister. Well, if you were called, did that suddenly change? And it's like, the ways that we're called, shift and change. But the calling looked like ministry, but the calling was just to awakening. And that's where we all kind of arrive in the same place. And what our doing looks different for all of us. That's the beauty of community. That as we do what we're practicing, every person in this community will be in their right and perfect place. For years, I held a position that I loved for a period of time. But I knew in my heart I needed to be somewhere else, but I was afraid to let go. I was afraid to let go because how would my bills get paid? How would I identify? I really identified with my former career. I loved it. I was good at it. I got to play with a lot of fun people who inspired me and dressed well, and we got to go shopping together in between sales appointments. I mean, it was fun. It was good until something else was calling. And I wasn't listening. Or I was listening, but I was ignoring it because I was afraid to let go. Do you know what finally happened? Is I realized I was occupying a space that no longer inspired me, no longer, excited me, but that there was somebody else that would love to have been in that space, that would have taken it and occupied it in a unique way that would have taken it to the next or another level. But I was scared to let go. And then when I let go, there was yet not I, but something else lives as me. And the flow of life completely took over because you know what? Life is for us, it's not against us. Say, life is for me. Life is for me. Absolutely. And it supports us. And I had to have an emptiness, a sweet surrender, because it became the sweet surrender so that I could be used in a different way. So that's part of what we're talking about. So our activity will be right activity, will be divinely inspired, and will come from being. And back to the beginning, because you are Christ. No, I'm not. That's blasphemous. With God only ever begotten, one beloved. And it's that principle, that spark of the divine, and it's within each of us. It's within each of us. And therefore, we're responsible for the whole of creation. We cannot think a thought We cannot think a thought without disturbing or blessing, I'm going to add that, the farthest of stars. This mind will take that and feel pressure. This mind, the mind of surrender, gets it and will allow the flow. If we're not here fully yet, it's okay. We just back up. What came before surrender? Allowance. What came before allowance? Intention. What came before intention? Desire. The heart. And the heart will always recalibrate us in the right direction. It will always point us according to love where we are to be and how we are to be. And so that's really this pathway that we are talking about. Wow, that's up there. I love that. So I'm going to invite you to take a breath with me. I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you the story based upon Jesus, or Jeshua ben Joseph, who is the author of this material that we are working with. The way of life that works, the way of the heart. And there's this portion, this part of the book where he's sharing, just like any good teacher, any master teacher would, by the example of his life, so that you may see an illustration. And he shares this. He says that there was a desire in his heart to create some form of demonstration that would be so overwhelming that anyone who turned their attention to it could not help but be reminded. And listen to this. There's something far greater to life than living to survive, and surviving just to live. How many of us feel like that's what we're doing? We're living to survive, and we're surviving just to live. He wanted to create a demonstration that would teach the world about another way. And when he started to cultivate that desire, when he started to have the intention to have this demonstration, just like when you cultivate your desires and you begin to set intention, they become crystallized. You begin to get glimpses of what your life will be like. And he reports that he started to get glimpses when he was just a teenager. He got glimpses of teaching in front of people, and that there were thousands of people, and he could not comprehend what was coming through his mouth. The words that were coming through. He couldn't comprehend that's what that would be. And he continued to cultivate the desire even still, and it became more crystallized. And that he even saw things that a man living in that time and space couldn't comprehend, of technology of today that would lead to us being able to have these conversations, of a message that is still alive and still coming forth. Because we're still learning to mature in our Christedness. So he began to follow that thread until he recognized that really what he wanted to do, what he was called to do, was to demonstrate that death is not real. Boy, you take that fear and you bring that fear. A place where fear has to face the God you know. Every fear we have boils down to that one. A change in a relationship feels like death. A change in location is the death of one to another. We celebrate the births, but we fear the deaths. And yet, we need both. And that part of what his message was is that what lives cannot die. What lives can never die. And that which remains is the love and the Christed nature of our being. And following his thread, it took him to the mastery of life and death, the mastery of healing, and the mastery of consciousness. And it took him home, not to death in another world, but home to his divine identity. Going back far enough to the beginning that we can remember who we are. My highest intention for the work that we do in this community is that we awaken Christed beings and that it's all of us. And that we begin to live in this surrendered experience that becomes sweet through the practice of our allowance. And that the sweet surrender that we can let go of our struggle, we can let go of trying to make things happen, we can let go of control of that which we do not own, which is life. The life that each of us is magnificent. And it knows what to do if we let it. Are you willing? Are you willing? A yes is a good thing to say right now. If you can't say a yes, nod your head. Even if it wants to go like that, okay. Because it's signifying to our being a willingness, a letting go of our resistance. Are you willing to be made new? Are you willing to live the way of the heart? Are you willing to allow life to live as you? Are you willing to allow a sweet surrender to wash over you? And to celebrate in this community the fruits, yes, celebrate in this community the truth that sets us free, so that when we walk in here next week and we say, I'm limitless, or I'm fearless in unity, and I'm limitless in life, that we can begin to comprehend what that means.